Welcome to the Wrestling Experience,
where we tore up our script for this episode 20 minutes ago, and now we're going 100% improvised.
and we're scrambling here. But I'm Jazzy Podcast.
And I'm Johnny Podcast, and I don't know what to say either, but
We are here to recap Monday Night Raw live in the Thunderdome,
post SummerSlam Raw.
and this is the go home episode for Payback.
Isn't that weird?
That's
Can you believe
so
that?
weird. I
I never thought I would see that.
Yeah, it was pretty horrible. But hey, the show opens with Drew McIntyre. He makes his way into the ring looking like $1,000,000. I'm so happy
every week, man.
But he does. Like I love saying that. Like I feel like it's synonymous to Drew McIntyre now. But
that's like your vintage Michael Cole. Your thing looks like $1,000,000.
That's it. So he looks at the crowd and he's like, "Oh, this is great." And then he asks them for a thumbs up, which everyone in attendance does. And he talks about facing Randy Orton and how that was the biggest challenge in his career. But tonight he stands still WWE champion. And the reason why is because he's hungrier than Randy and he works harder than Randy and he pushes forward because he's proud to be WWE champion. And he kind of mentions Randy Orton's inner circle that always made sure that he made his way to the top, unlike Drew that had to kind of fight and claw his way to the top. And to be honest with you, I was listening to him and I was like, I love this cocky side of Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, it was a little bit heelish too, a little bit cocky, but not so much. Like he was also taking a few jabs at Randy Orton. He mentions the greatest wrestling match ever that Randy Orton won, and now that Drew McIntyre beat Randy Orton with a wrestling maneuver, doesn't that make him the greatest wrestler of all time? Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. And then basically he ends with, he's like, listen, if you want to step up again, that's fine. I'll do what I didn't get to do last night. I'll kick your head off with the Claymore. So he's exiting the ring and he's posing on the ramp. And then Orton, out of nowhere, viciously attacks him from behind. And Drew McIntyre, he does try to fight back, but Orton actually rakes him in the eye. And then he throws him around in gorilla position. And the refs actually come and they try to break him apart. But Randy Orton punts him once. Actually, not once, but twice. He punts him twice in the head, brutally. And Drew
McIntyre, pull him apart and
he
runs for another one.
Yeah, exactly. So poor Drew McIntyre. Hopefully he's okay.
Yeah, hopefully. We haven't heard from Ric Flair since, so we don't know. But I must say, maybe it's just me, but when the camera cut really close up to Drew, I'm like, I suspect something's going to happen involving Randy Orton, and to no one's surprise, Randy Orton ambushed him from behind on the ramp.
I guess you can say that Drew didn't see it coming.
Great start. He didn't see it coming. I guess that the theme of SummerSlam is bleeding into the post-SummerSlam show, but we don't care about SummerSlam anymore because it's the go home for Payback, so That's all we care about.
So next, Nia Jax is backstage, and she is stopped by Sarah, who rudely asks her what she's doing there because, she's been suspended, right? And
yes.
Nia's like, well, listen, I've been reinstated, and do you know why? Because I apologized. And then Shayna shows up.
No, you have to. Oh, you can't just leave
I'm
it
sorry.
at that.
I didn't want to yell.
Weird. Well, you didn't have to yell, but basically what Nia does is she's like, well, this is what I did. All I have to do is this, and I'll share a secret to you. And she goes right into her ear and yells, all I have to do is apologize. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, Nia, you're great. Yeah. But then you're right. As you were saying, Shayna does show up, and I like the exchange between these two.
Really?
I'm not going to lie.
I thought it was super cringy. Like
it was.
Nia called her an Addams Family reject, and I was like, oh, come on, man.
I think Shayna was all solid, and Nia had a bit of cringe. And I kind of like the chemistry these two have bouncing off each other with stuff. And, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the rest of the episode.
Well, we do have our next match, our first match of the night. We have Shayna Baszler versus Bayley. Before the match begins, however, Nia makes her entrance. So, definitely keep an eye for an obvious interference. Shayna is actually in full control of the match, and Bayley retreats outside, and Sasha kind of tends to her. And basically, Bayley kind of puts her in a triangle, but then Sasha causes the interference and Shayna lets go, and then Bayley took advantage for a little bit with a suplex, but it doesn't take long for Nia to get involved and attacks Baszler. So hey, obvious guess was obvious because Nia actually causes the interference and attacks Shayna Baszler, but that doesn't actually last long because as they're attacking each other, Sasha and Bayley are just laughing.
This is interesting.
Yeah.
They're laughing at each other, beating each other up, and then I think Shayna first gives them a glance while Nia continues the beatdown, and then Nia notices that they're laughing at her, and then they just kind of stop, and they're all of a sudden buddy, and they chase after Bayley and Sasha. Well, I guess we know who the two opponents that for the women's tag team titles will be at Payback.
Oh, of course, because they don't have already the Iconics or even the Riot Squad, right? Like, they need to formulate another tag team. Oh, well, you know.
Oh, you know what they say. 2 main eventers teaming up are always better than your best tag team.
Yeah, exactly. So now we do have Kevin Owens. He's backstage, and he's looking for Aleister Black. Some producer actually points him in a dark room because that's where Aleister Black likes to hang out. You know, for 6 months doing nothing, just doing promos in a dark room. And Kevin Owens kind of knocks on the door, and he's like, listen, you know, I invited you to the KO show. I don't know if you're coming, but it's up next. So, you know, blah, blah. And next segment, right after the break, he welcomes us to the KO show. And he talks about his guests a little bit, and he talks about having a common enemy in Seth Rollins. And then he introduces the returning Aleister Black. And Aleister Black comes out looking pretty cool, honestly, with his right eye covered and dressed in all black. I don't know what you thought about his look.
It was interesting. This is a suspicious segment because we didn't see Aleister Black backstage, but we just saw his hand close the door after Kevin Owens left it open. And this is firing all kinds of signals in my brain. I'm like, something suspicious is going to happen. Why would Kevin Owens have Aleister Black on the show?
But I called it.
And so, yeah, you did. And so, yeah, Kevin Owens is talking to him about what happened. They're going over it. Kevin Owens is talking about how he used to be that kind of guy like Seth Rollins is. He doesn't want to be like that. And Aleister Black basically just says, just show the footage instead of talking about it. And KO is like, I don't really want to. Maybe it's not a good idea. But Aleister insists. And after the footage, Kevin Owens keeps talking, and Aleister kind of looks like he's fallen, like he grabs his eye, he's like hurt, and KO goes to check on him, being the nice guy that he is. And Aleister Black kind of just shoves him and gives him a kick and a black mass while he's on his knee and just runs away.
Yeah, so there's the heel turn that we wanted.
Who wanted that? I don't remember wanting that.
I wanted that. Come on. Like, Aleister Black was not doing a single thing. So I like the fact that he's going to be in a program against Kevin Owens.
I mean, I guess that's fair, but I just don't think we got the most out of a face Aleister Black. But I'm sure he'll do a great job as a heel for sure. I'm just a little disappointed.
Speaking of doing a great job as a heel, Bayley and Sasha, they're backstage and they're being interviewed. Thank you very much. And Sasha says that, you know what, she doesn't even deserve to be in this situation. She should be the Raw Women's Champion right now. And Bayley's like, you know what, well, tonight she is once again going to be 2 belt banks. And don't forget, because we're gonna have a what is that match called again? Where a bunch of wrestlers are outside.
Lumberjack.
Yes, a lumberjack match.
So forget everything you know about lumberjack match rules because that doesn't even apply in this match. No. I mean, that's later on. That's the match before the main event. So we have a while before we get there. But yeah, forget everything you know about lumberjack match.
But now we do have a useless fatal 4-way match between Shelton, Akira, and Cedric and R-Truth. And
I forgot this happened.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of roll-ups at the beginning of the match until things pick up between Shelton and Cedric. And I'm like, both of them deserve to be in a better spot than the 24/7 title scene. And Shelton powerbombs Akira Tozawa outside, but the ninjas actually grab him and throw him back in the ring. R-Truth actually throws Shelton out of the ring, and the ninjas start basically holding onto Shelton, and Tozawa rolls up R-Truth for the win. So Shelton is not happy. He's beating the hell out of the ninjas, and Tozawa is able to escape with the title. And that's the end of that segment.
Are you sure they were the ninjas and not Retribution? Because I'm very confused now.
Yep. So next up we have Randy. He's backstage, and Sarah asks him if he has any comments on what he did earlier, and he says yes. So he makes his way to the ring. He talks about not being able to take the title away from Drew, and he's not happy about that. But he's like, one thing I will forever be is a man of my word. And he talks about all the legends he killed lately, you know, talking about Edge and Ric Flair and HBK and the Big Show.
Something to be proud of, really.
Yeah, and he's like, listen, the opportunity presented itself, you know, at the beginning of the show, and I enjoyed kicking his skull. So, you know, he was insulted that Drew offered him a rematch out of pity, and Keith Lee interrupts him.
Was it really out of pity, though? I mean,
Drew
when he said that line earlier in the show, I'm like, Drew is the smartest babyface they've ever had. Like, he knows that it's not over. He knows that the heel's going to want to have another rematch. And then they twist it because Orton's so good and turns it into, like, so you're telling me Orton didn't want a rematch, and because he was offered one out of pity, he's like, I'll take it.
He's insulted now. Yeah, exactly. But hey, Keith Lee interrupts him with a whole new a whole new theme song, and it sounds like a bootleg version of the Lesnar theme song. I don't like it.
I did prefer the like it starts very similar to his old theme, but then just when the track actually kicks in, it's different, and I much prefer the old one. But whatever, this is it's so forgettable. I'd have to listen to it again to actually have an opinion.
Yeah, so gone is his goatee, gone are his trunks. It's a new Keith Lee. So he introduces.
Did he have a goatee at Takeover?
He did, I believe. So Keith Lee introduces himself to Orton like a gentleman and a scholar, and he says that Randy goes by many names. And then he starts listing them: the Viper, the Apex Predator, the Legend Killer. But he also goes by many names: the Anomaly, the Game Changer. But one thing he is for certain that's that he's limitless. And he's like, well, since Randy is looking for a fight, well, with respect to Drew, Keith Lee is proposing a challenge right now. And I'm like marking out at this point. I'm like, oh my God, are they really going to skyrocket, Keith Lee into like Randy Orton scene, right? Because again, Randy Orton is probably one of the top performers on Raw, and Keith Lee's already, gunning after him. So that's pretty awesome.
And he was already in clashes with Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar before, so it would make sense to put him up there.
Yeah.
Is this gonna be a triple threat match like what we have on the SmackDown Universal Title side?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
So. No,
Probably
they actually
not.
confirmed that Randy Orton is going to be facing Keith Lee at Payback.
Yeah, that's what ends up happening, but that's later.
Yeah.
No, we don't confirm that now.
Yeah.
They actually are supposed to. They're supposed to have a match now. Randy Orton is challenged to a match by Keith Lee, and he responds in probably the coolest way. He's like, "Oh, you want a match with me?" He's all fired up. He's like, "Well, not tonight.
Maybe later," he said.
Maybe later.
Yeah. So now we're backstage, and Angel is with Demi and Zelina. Like this Demi person is on Raw like every single week now.
My God, I'm more of a fan of wrestling, and I'm not on Raw every single week.
Seriously, Charlie Crusoe's there, and she's being sassy with Zelina, and Zelina's kind of hitting back, and Charlie asks her if she's ready to admit that she poisoned Montez with all this, video evidence that they had. Zelina just kind of leaves, and Angel invites Demi ringside for his match. So
no, you missed the best part though. The best part was when Angel interrupts and says, "So what if she did something and made mistakes? It's in the past, implying her guilt." And Zelina's like, would you stop? Like, stop saying things that don't make sense. And then she storms off.
That's true.
Then Angel's left there. And it turns out that Demi has been talking to Ivar as well. That's some important hot news to also mention.
So next up, we do have our match. We have Angel Garza, who's facing Montez Ford in a singles match. And to be honest with you, again, the match was fine, but I'm just about done for them to kind of move on to different teams. Like, we've already seen this feud going on for the past 2-3 months. But again, what we got was really good. We got some high octane stuff from both of them. The pants were even quickly off this match as Angel kind of drop kicked Montez in the face, and then he took control with a running knee strike on the corner. But again, I kind of want to move on from them.
Well, I was disappointed at the outcome, and I'm wondering who's going to be the next big heel team to take down the Street Profits. I'm not really even sure who their next challengers would be.
Is AOP still there? Is the other guy still injured? I don't,
If anything, it looks like Andrade and Garza are going to be feuding with the Viking Raiders over this Bachelor girl who's on a show about trying to get with the Bachelor, so they don't even have a chance. I don't understand. It's very confusing.
Yeah, but hey, Ivar comes out and he's holding something behind him, and he offers a piece of chicken to Demi. How nice of him!
He offers her his meat, basically.
And he basically asks her if she wants to get out of here. She says yes. I would too if Ivar asked me. He's so dreamy.
I'd go hang out with him, especially if he gave me a big chicken leg.
Oh, yeah. So Angel is not happy. He's yelling at Ivar, and he completely forgets that he's in a match for a second. Montez takes advantage.
Easy to happen.
Yeah, and he hits him with a beautiful 180 frog splash. I'm calling it a 180 frog splash.
Whatever it is, it's beautiful. It is very beautiful.
Yeah, next up, we're backstage with Nia Jax and Shayna. Nia wasn't thrilled at first with the idea of them tag teaming, but she wants those she really wants those titles. And Shayna agrees. Yeah, Shayna agrees. She's like, listen, I'll help you with that, but you have to leave me alone. And then she kind of just slaps her really hard, and Nia's like, shrugging. So at Payback, we're going to get Nia and Shayna versus the Golden Role Models.
It's going to be very interesting to see.
Mm-hmm. And
I'm excited.
In the same segment, we have Liv and Ruby with Bianca, and they talk about beating the Iconics and Zelina, which is up next. So the match was okay. The Iconics, they have advantage on Liv Morgan at the beginning, but Liv Morgan actually fights back, and she shows us some impressive moveset and tag team moves with Ruby Riott. But then the Iconics, they take control once again, and they start working on Ruby. the match itself got really good, and it kicked up another gear when Bianca tagged in, and that's when you realized that Bianca deserves better.
Yeah, well, I mean, this match really didn't feel like, I get it. It totally makes sense that, they're feuding. The Riot Squad and the Iconics, Zelina Vega and Bianca are kind of feuding. Let's put them all together and we'll have it's a Teddy Long maneuver, but like it just felt like whatever. Nobody cares, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It was a fine match, and Bianca Belair did show how great she is.
Yeah, and she made quick work of Zelina by winning with the KOD.
Exactly. The kiss of death. I love that I know what that is.
Amazing. So now we have Ricochet and Cedric. They actually find their way out of catering, and they're having themselves an arm wrestling match.
Why would they do that? Why wouldn't you be in catering instead of playing with an arm wrestling table?
Right, I heard the food is great. But Mark Henry shows up, and he's like, listen, guys, like you got to break it up because I got to bring this arm wrestling gear in the ring. And Mark Henry and he basically, leaves with the gear. And MVP shows up.
Good thing he didn't have a salmon suit.
Oh, yeah, because he's got a lot left in the tank. So MVP shows up, and he kind of puts down Cedric again. He's like, he mentions that Ricochet abandoned him last week, and he's like, what are you doing with this chump? Real talk, you're wasting your prime years. So, hit me up. So, again,
also,
there's some
MVP did shave his goatee, so it seems like everyone's shaving their goatee.
Yeah.
I must say, I'm quite happy that Keith Lee was not involved with the Hurt Business, because it feels like the whole roster is being segregated into these segments with the Hurt Business and the other guys, and at least Keith Lee is somewhere else. That was my biggest fear.
Yeah, same here. But I'm happy that they saw a reason and they're shooting him into the moon. So we are now back in the ring for this arm wrestling fight because, it is a wrestling show. So exciting. Mark Henry actually, and this is so funny. I don't know if you realize, but Mark Henry actually called Cedric Alexander Cedric the Entertainer.
He did, yeah. And he kind of realized that
he realized that he messed up.
And he's like, yeah, he is entertaining, but I'm talking about Cedric Alexander. And I was like, oh,
it was beautiful. So,
MVP is so good.
Yeah, no. This is where Bobby Lashley gets on the mic and he's like, listen, I'm going to slam your arm and then I'm going to slam you down, but not too hard because, I'm going to get that title at Payback. So now we're going to have Apollo Crews versus Bobby Lashley at Payback for the United States Championship. And, Apollo kind of reminds him and he kind of hits back. He's like, well, listen, I want to remind you what I did to your buddy MVP. So they get ready for the arm wrestling match, and Apollo stomps on Lashley's foot, who had his foot under the platform, which is actually illegal, and the commentators told us that it's illegal, and he outsmarts him and he wins easily. And
I like Apollo.
I love
very
Apollo.
Good. He's a very intelligent face champion. I do expect him to lose to Bobby Lashley for the title here. But
don't say that.
But hopefully he gets to hold on to it a bit longer.
But yeah, so you're right about Apollo being smart because Lashley is about to attack him. He reverses and he escapes with the title. Smart guy because the Hurt Business also showed up and we're looking for blood. So now we're backstage.
Classic Hurt Business.
Yeah, now we're backstage with Ray, Dominic, and Angie. That's the mom's name. It's Angie. And Ray talks about how he's proud of Dominic for facing one of the most dangerous wrestlers. Dominic talks about being terrified and nervous, but no matter what, having his family in his corner gave him the courage to fight him. And Rey Mysterio gets on the mic and he's like, listen, one day Seth is going to have a family of his own and he's going to understand what he put Rey through. So now Rey gets to do what he dreamed of for many years, and is to share the ring with his son in a tag team match. So, again, a great segment with Rey and Dominic. Again, I'm looking forward to Dominic's future, to be honest with you.
Yeah, honestly, he put on a great debut match, and he's got his second match, and he gets a team with his dad tonight, which is going to be very exciting. I hope nothing goes wrong to ruin that.
Yeah, so, well, before our next segment, we have breaking news where Bray Wyatt is going to face Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns in a triple threat match for the Universal title. So, hey, Roman Reigns shows up one night, and he's already at the top.
It should be a fatal four-way, honestly. It should be Bray Wyatt versus Braun Strowman versus Roman Reigns' teeth. But
his veneers.
The veneers. Yeah, I mean, I know it's Roman Reigns. He should be skyrocketed to the top. I mean, of course.
Yeah.
But I wonder what's going to happen. If he wins, that's honestly kind of...
He's going to win. He's going to win, dude.
He's probably going to win, but it's kind of like, come on, man.
And they're going to make The Fiend look like a freaking chump again.
Once again, why don't we just get Goldberg to do it then?
Oh my god. Anyways, next up we have Lana and Natalya. They're both in the ring. They talk about inducting a special woman into the Hall of Fame. They're referring to Mickie James. And, they talk about retiring the chick with the kick. And they want to present a highlight reel of hers. But there's actually absolutely nothing. That's the joke.
Can I just say this is awful?
It was really awful.
And not awful in the good way. Like
no. It was bad. It was bad. It wasn't Bayley, this is your life bad, but it was still bad. But, Mickie James isn't happy. She shows up. She shoves Natalya, and she kicks Lana in the face. And she leaves. So, Mickie James gets the last laugh.
Mickie James has still got it. She's always been awesome. She's way better than Natalya. She needs to win this feud. Yeah. I'm taking it personal.
So now, do you want to talk about Raw Underground? Because we're reminded that Raw Underground is still a thing.
Not really. But yeah, I mean, it looks like Bobby Lashley just wants to he was mad earlier about what happened with Apollo, so he just wanted to beat someone up. And
he beats up Ziggler,
Before Raw Underground even started, he was like asking Shane, like, just let me in, I want to beat someone up. And he beats up Ziggler. I mean, Ziggler looked pretty good for a bit, but not really. No. And then he got completely stomped, and Bobby Lashley is the winner. And some other guy was going to go in. He didn't want to, but he got pushed in, and then he got absolutely crushed as well. So that was...
Honestly, yeah. I like seeing this Bobby Lashley with this much fire. I think... Again, I don't want Apollo to lose because I still think that he has a lot of title defenses in him. But I wouldn't be entirely mad or sad if Bobby Lashley wins.
I feel like Bobby Lashley has been always on the short end of everything when it comes to storylines, and he's always looked less than he could be, and I feel like he's got to get something, and this could be a big win for him. I still want to see that Bobby Lashley-Brock Lesnar match. That was supposed to be a thing.
Yeah, so now we do have Randy Orton versus Keith Lee, and unfortunately, it doesn't end in a clean fashion. Actually, Randy Orton is the winner by disqualification.
Very surprising. I mean, this is a solid match, and both guys get to showcase their stuff, but really, it ends up being ended prematurely when Orton's about to get the RKO, and Drew McIntyre just drags him out of the ring and just starts beating him down.
Yeah, exactly. What a surprise. So Drew McIntyre took 2 punts to the head, but it wasn't enough. He kind of got back and caused a distraction. He's good. What do you want? They continue fighting, and Orton escapes, and Drew is just angry about everything. I hope he apologized to Keith Lee for blowing his first match and giving him a loss, but never mind, not important. But post-match, wasn't Drew McIntyre attacked once again?
Yeah, well, first we got to get reminded that the big dog is back.
Oh, yeah.
Then Drew McIntyre is backstage, and he's talking about what happened. And then he gets ambushed again by Randy Orton, and he gets punted again. And I think at this point he's done. They're worried that his skull has been fractured.
Exactly. Because there was a replay after the commercial, and Charlie Caruso is kind of outside the trainer room, and she mentions that Drew McIntyre is getting looked at, but she had heard that it could be a skull fracture. So are they writing him off? Like, it's kind of weird. Like, imagine having a skull fracture, but then you're wrestling like 7 days later.
The ambulance did drive off, and I thought maybe the Fiend would show up too, like he did on SmackDown the other time. But no, that was just severe flashbacks. But yeah, I don't know what this is, and we are going to find out that we are going to get that match between Keith Lee and Randy Orton at Payback, because Keith Lee wants payback for Drew. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. Let's just hope he doesn't drop the title because he has a fractured head. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah. So now we do have our lumberjack match between Asuka and Sasha Banks, and it wasn't as good as their previous matches.
I mean, it was still fine, but clearly after yesterday's performance, they kind of toned it down. Also, there's really not much to go into about this one, but except the fact that I don't think anyone knows how to be a lumberjack here, because at one point, I think that like the Riot Squad was helping Asuka and not actually attacking her and letting her slowly get out of get back into the ring. Sasha tries to go for a dive onto Asuka, who dodges it, and then she just hits the Riot Squad. Mm-hmm. Strange things like that. Bayley's just beating up Asuka and anytime she's out of the ring, so that's fine, I guess. And then nobody's breaking it up. It's very strange. And the finish is actually kind of sketchy as well, because Bayley's noticing that Sasha might not make it, so she's pulling out a steel chair as though she wants to toss it to Sasha. And that's when Shayna Baszler decides to pull Bayley's leg, which makes sense because they're feuding for the title, but still not very lumberjacky things to do. This whole distraction lets Banks get pulled up into the Asuka lock, and Asuka was able to get her to tap out and retain the title.
Yeah, so I guess it was to prolong the story again, but Shayna Baszler, there's a reason why Shayna Baszler stopped Bayley, I guess. But I would think that with Asuka beating Sasha Banks, the I mean, I guess it's over for Sasha. Like, she's not gonna be challenging for the Raw title anytime soon.
I mean, it would make sense. Didn't Shayna Baszler call dibs? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, that's why we shouldn't have like totally thrown out our scripts, because this is when we get the ambulance scene where Drew is taken away and Keith Lee says he's friends with Drew and Drew is a really tough guy.
It's all a jumble, man. It's all a jumble.
And then Randy Orton and is getting challenged by Keith Lee, and he's gonna go after Randy Orton. Basically, that's what happened.
Pretty much.
And then there's a quick Raw Underground segment where Bobby Lashley also beats up more people. Cedric Alexander, the Viking Raiders come in, but the rest of the Hurt Business help Bobby Lashley just dominate. So there you go, a very quick Raw Underground for this week's episode of Raw, just featuring Bobby Lashley and the Hurt Business. I mean, they did say that they own Raw Underground at this point, so it would make sense.
To be honest with you, if they just give us these little segments, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that one. It's totally fine.
Yeah, exactly.
They're good for what they are. It's like watching. It's instead of getting an annoying recap of something, like how many times did we find out that the big dog returned tonight on a show he's not even on? We could have got some random dudes beating each other up and round around.
Pretty much. But now we do have our main event. We have Rey and Dominic Mysterio versus Seth Rollins and Murphy. Not a clean finish yet again.
Yeah, so Tozawa's Retribution attack at the end of this match, so we have no decision. It's a pretty good match nonetheless. Dominic Mysterio does show off the skills he's learned that we saw from last night. Rey Mysterio's back in full force, and it looks like they're going to win, and that's when the lights flicker and Retribution attacks. And yeah, it's just a beatdown. Just absolute beatdown from Retribution, and I'm wondering who's who here, because I thought they were the ninjas. I'm very confused.
Seriously, like, why can't they just, dress up differently? Like, why do they have to, like, kind of look exactly like those frigging ninjas? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and Rollins and Murphy were able to escape. Also, it's important to note that there were 6 members of Retribution.
Yes,
and there's only 4
like
ninjas.
2 women, I think.
So if there's only 4 ninjas but 6 Retribution members, maybe there's 10 ninjas total.
Ugh, oh my god. But honestly, like, that's how Raw ended, and it was a weird show. Like, I didn't particularly enjoy it too much. Like, I felt that, like, it was chaotic, but not in a good way. You know what I mean? Like, the arm wrestling thing, fine, whatever. The Raw Underground stuff was short, so that's fine. Retribution, I have no idea, again, why they're kind of dressed up as ninjas. Keith Lee, losing his old theme song, I'm still kind of, salty about that. But again, I love the fact that Keith Lee is, standing up to Randy Orton and gunning for him, which means that I guess they see big things for him, right?
Yeah, let's talk about the pros. Some of the pros you mentioned, I agree with. I also really liked the Shayna Baszler, Nia Jax thing. Like, I thought that was interesting. Yes, sure, they're not an established tag team, but that was an interesting storyline. As well, I didn't like the Retribution deciding to beat up the Mysterios, but not Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy. They're cool. They let them sit there. It would have been so much better if all 4 of them got beat up by Retribution.
Yeah, like, that's what I didn't understand. Like, why they wouldn't go for Seth Rollins and Murphy. Like, does that mean that, like, these are actually disciples of Seth Rollins? Like, that wouldn't make sense, right? Like, why would they kind of start
No, I mean, if that's what they're going for, then sure, I'll take it. But, like, it still seems wrong. It seems weird that they wouldn't beat up Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy.
Yeah.
They didn't even escape. They were just staring. They were just at the ramp, at the stage, laughing maniacally at what was happening, and no one bothered to go beat them up. I guess Retribution's too busy with the 6-on-2, odds playa. So that was a bit disappointing. But yeah, like you said, there was some good and there was some bad. Like, there was a lot of segments that just seemed random. I liked how Bobby Lashley looked even in this episode after beating everybody up in Raw Underground. It was not bad. But overall,
I guess overall, it just kind of felt like middle of the pack. And, again, we joked at the very, very beginning when we said that we tore our script and everything like that. And that's kind of, in response to reports that, Vince McMahon kind of changed a lot of things at the last minute on the, on the day of the show, like 40 minutes before the show. And I think that kind of shows, you know what I mean? Like, when you don't have a script, like, it's kind of crazy that they're kind of writing this and booking this week per week. Like, they should have at least like a month written in advance or something like that, at least for there to be some sort of cohesion,
I don't know. I guess they want to be fluid and not just have everything written out and planned and laid out, which I totally understand. But at the same time, yeah, there's no reason to not have a plan and have a plan B and adjust for things that change that you can't foresee.
But hey, you know what? SmackDown is going to be great. You know why? Because the big dog is back.
The big dog and those teeth.
And those teeth just wrecking everything. Again, I guess if there's one thing that I'm looking forward to SmackDown is to really find out what kind of person Roman is. Is he a heel? Is he a face? Is he a tweener? Is he a face that's just gonna, kind of like a wrecking ball sort of thing? But again, this is a pretty okay episode for a take home for a pay-per-view that had less than a week build, which is still ridiculous to me. But lots of good things to come on SmackDown, I find.
Yeah, for the first ever go home / post pay-per-view episode at the same time, they did okay. Yeah. And I really hope that on SmackDown we see Roman Reigns with maybe not a vest, maybe a different theme song, just a different attitude, because I really hope we don't have like just the Shield theme and his usual shtick, because I feel like it's time to retire that and have him do something different.
Maybe they'll give him Keith Lee's old theme song.
Yeah, bask in his glory. I would bask in Roman's glory. It totally makes sense.
Yeah, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this recap. Make sure to find all the information in the description below, where to find us on YouTube, and also where to find us wherever you listen to your podcast. And we'll see you guys in the next one. So
can you believe how many douchebags were posting weird pictures as crowd members on this episode? Oh my
God, it was horrible. There was even a redacted.
The person that won the Royal Rumble in 2004, redacted.
I thought there was no Royal Rumble in 2004.
There wasn't. Oh, there was no Royal Rumble match, but there was a pay-per-view certainly.
True.